my journey towards Islam is actually quite phenomenal. I personally believe it's quite phenomenal, really. Since I've been to see the Queen, I have been invited to so many important places to tell people, first of all, what inspired me to become the person that I am today. What did I do to get to see the Queen at Buckingham Palace? And now, how did I come towards my faith? So this talk is really an amalgamation of all three, and it is all completely linked, believe it or not. Now, everything I say towards the beginning of the PowerPoint, you might think, what's she telling us that about? Why do we need to know about that? But everything I tell you towards the beginning of the PowerPoint will have a great significance later on in my life. So the first part of my life was God building up me academically. It really was. One after the other, I was going up academically, building up my talents. And then the second part of my life was me using those talents for the purpose of Islam. That's exactly how it was for me. So the first thing I'm going to do is to talk to you about what inspired me to become the way I am. And my first hero in my life was actually my dad. And first of all, I was born in a very highly educated family. I'm telling you this for a reason as well. Very highly educated family. We were from the city. Our parents always told us that. Everyone on my mum's and my dad's side, they all had degrees. Even my granddads, both of the granddads on my mum's and my dad's side, both had degrees. And they were actually had degrees from the days of the British Empire. So it was very, very important in our family. It was drummed into us from a very early age that if you don't get educated, you will be the black sheep of the family, basically. And my dad came to England in 1962 as a young student, and he did 2 degrees here in Bradford University from this country. And this is actually his graduation photo. And who does this remind you of? He, like me, he also met famous people. And as you can see, this photo is in a frame, which means it was displayed in our house. And this is actually Harold Wilson, the Prime Minister, from 1964 to 1970. And you know, when I used to see that picture, I used to think in my heart, I want to do that. I want to shake somebody's hand one day, like my dad has shaken this famous person's hand, and it was a really big thing. So it was up in our sitting room for a long, long time. It's still in the frame, as you can see. And then my dad became a scientist. So he worked in ICI laboratory in 1971. He started working as a scientist. He was very hard working. He never took a day off work. Now, who does that remind you of? No matter how ill he was, my mum used to beg him, don't go into work. And he said, no, I'm going into work. And that actually does remind me of myself, because there was one of the lectures and it was snowing and people begged me, don't go, and I went. And I never take time off lectures and appointments and things. So in the meantime, my mum, she had 3 degrees. Okay, so she first of all had her normal BA degree, then she did her teacher training, and then she did her MA as well. And that was it back home in Pakistan. So she was very highly qualified, and she was a teacher. She was a deputy head teacher, deputy head, okay, in a university, University of Punjab. And as you can see, she's really well dressed. Who does that remind you of? Okay. And then my dad got married to my mum, and she came here. And I was born, and that is me in my cot. And obviously I was born a Muslim, but I wouldn't say I was a fully practicing Muslim. I was only picking and choosing. Like in Ramadan I would fast, and I'd pray in Ramadan, and I didn't know why as I was growing up. But I was the eldest in my family. There's another picture of me. I was the eldest in my family, and because of that, that had a huge impact on me, because I felt I had to be a role model for the rest of my brothers and sisters. And every time I did something bad, my mum would always tell me off that, look, the other two are going to end up like you now. So I always felt all the time that I had to set this good standard for my sister and brother to follow. We were always, right from the beginning, told we were British, we're born in England, and we need to mix with other faiths. This is my next door neighbour. She's Christian, Auntie Dorothy, and she, from a very early age, we were brought up to mix with other faiths. And my dad always told us to speak in English, and even now, some people get shocked because we speak in English with our dad. And it might be because he came here as a young student himself. And then, when I was about 2 years old, we moved to London. So I was actually born up north, but I moved to London when I was about 2 years old. And I moved into a very multicultural area, so there was lots and lots of different faiths as I was growing up. There was also so many of my own faith, and because of that, I never thought about my own faith. This is very, very interesting. Where there are too many of one faith, you don't think about your faith. You grow up, parrot fashion, just following the religion because everybody else is doing it. Do you see? That's how I was. That is what was happening to me. And then as soon as I started nursery, I started pretending to be a teacher. And my sister actually always tells me that I would always make her the pupil, and the dollies were always the pupils, and I was the teacher, always. So right from a very early age, I wanted to be a teacher. And because I was the eldest, out of the three altogether, I was quite bossy as well. Okay, and then my best friends at primary school and at college were Hindus. My favourite subject was religious education. I remember getting an A+ for coursework to do with RE, and I also remember getting a distinction certificate in RE as well. And I remember actually coming home and talking to my parents about reincarnation that I'd heard at school. I was just so fascinated with reincarnation, so I was looking into things even then. And even though I was parrot fashion following my faith, I was in my heart. I wouldn't ask my mum any questions because it wasn't the era in those days where you asked your mum questions. But I used to question it myself. I wonder why you do this, and I wonder why you do this. And it was always there in me. That faith, I think, was definitely in me. Our mum would teach us stories of the Quran. I think she did really, really well in the days where there were no mosques. She also taught us about the Day of Judgment and things like that. And later on then, when I came towards my faith, which obviously I haven't got to that bit yet, I thought, wow, I've heard this when I was a child. So it was always there. And my favourite subject was science. So I had to choose, am I going to be a teacher like my mum, or am I going to be a scientist like my dad? And like I said, my dad was my first role model. So I did graduate in a science degree. Okay, so I started working as a scientist, just like my dad. And I worked in Moorfields Eye Hospital, and at the back of Moorfields Eye Hospital was the Institute of Ophthalmology. And look at this picture, that's me in the science lab, just like my dad was in the science lab. So it was very, very interesting, very psychological, I think, what was happening in my life. As soon as I graduated, I was a very young girl and I got engaged. Okay, straight away, as soon as the degree finished. And it was a very traditional arranged marriage. A lot of people look at me and think, oh, she's such a strong woman, she must have chosen her own. But no, I did have a very traditional arranged marriage. Many practices were cultural, but I didn't know at the time that they were not part of the religion, so I didn't distinguish between the two. My husband was doing his medicine in Bath at the time, so I knew that my job as a scientist I would have to give up at one stage. So I started applying for jobs and I couldn't get any, okay, as a scientist. Bath is a very small town. And then do you know what? This is what I call fate, and I really do believe it was from God. I met my old primary school teacher in Tesco. This is while I was still engaged. And I told her I don't know what to do, I can't find a job, and I'm going to be moving in Bath soon, in a couple of months when I get married. And she said to me, you know what, you should be a teacher, because when I was at school I was multi-talented in so many subjects, I was always the teacher's pet. And she said, you'd make a really good teacher. You've got a loving personality, you're very creative, very artistic, you're good at so many subjects, and you should just go and be a teacher. So I applied in the Bath region, I applied to be a teacher, and guess what, I got a space. Because it was to come what was going to happen. God had everything planned what was to happen. So then I got married, went to Bath, did my postgraduate in teaching, which was the best thing that I ever did. I specialised in science, I didn't lose the science degree either. And all of those skills then I put together, and just before my children were born I trained as a teacher, and I did lots. Academically I built up here, and it's all of this then in the second half of my life that I will be using. So I qualified first of all as a teacher, then later on I did a further specialism, an MSc in special educational, social and emotional mental health and wellbeing needs, like my mum. Exactly the same story as my mum. She did 3 degrees and I did 3 degrees. So I then started, when my daughter was about 5 years old and she started school, that is when then I went in and started my career. And that I only used to go in 1 day a week, and then it gradually got bigger and bigger. So I was arranging, chairing and hosting Brentwood School's SENCO cluster meetings. SENCO is a special educational needs coordinator, which is a specialist teacher. I trained other SENCOs in Essex. I represented primary SENCOs for Essex County Council. I was the vice chair on Brentwood behaviour, attendance and pastoral meetings. I represented all SENCOs in Essex, regularly gave lectures. I started giving lectures on special needs, mental health, in conferences, universities. And I started running parenting courses on behaviour, health, mental health, emotional development in children. And this is how I looked at the time, hair out, everything. Okay. I was still dressed modestly though, but at this stage, this is how I was. Very professional, did everything. And then do you know what? There was a big turning point in my life. There were 2, okay? This is the first one, 9/11. And you know when Dave was talking earlier and he said it was really, really slow, everything was with him, and then he came towards his faith? With me, it was boom. It was a big boom, and that was the point at which, in a way, I became Muslim. Seriously, that's how quick it was. So I went to school that day to collect my children from school, and up at that stage, people had asked me, what religion are you? Because at this stage I was living in Brentwood. People would ask me, what religion are you? And I'd say Muslim, and there was nothing. Nobody would even bat an eyelid. That's how the atmosphere was. And when 9/11 happened on that same day, I went to collect my children from school, and 5 mums who were my friends came up to me and said, what religion did you say you were again? And all of a sudden I was ashamed to say that I'm Muslim. And I said Islam, and they went, Islam? Is that the religion where people, is it okay in your religion to kill other people? Can you bomb other people? Are you allowed to commit suicide? Is it in your religion to do this? Is it in your religion to do this? And then later on in that same week, I went to help with swimming with my daughter's class, and this lady goes to me, do you know what? Isn't it in Islam where you walk 10 feet behind your husband? And all I knew was that in my family that doesn't happen, but my family was different anyway from other Muslims, because we were highly educated and we were from a city area. So maybe it doesn't happen in our family because of that, but maybe it is in the religion. So do you know what? I had to find questions to answer to these mums who were my friends. And there was no internet. We are going back to 9/11. It was rubbish. There was nothing there. And Brentwood Library, do you think they're going to have anything on Islam? Nothing. So, picked up a Quran, started reading it in English, which, parrot fashion, even my mum had read it in Arabic. Started asking my mum questions she didn't know either. So, like you said, and you know my talk is amalgamation of all three of yours. You know, like you said, there were difficult questions and you had to look into things. I started looking into things right down to the sources. And did you know, my mum went to Saudi Arabia and she imported over all the 9 volumes of the hadiths that I started looking at. So I started looking into everything and I thought, wow, what a beautiful religion. It isn't like that, and it isn't like that. And like Dave was saying, it was a slow process. For me, no. For me, it was, you know, there's a saying in our religion that when the signs of the Day of Judgment come, one thing happens and then everything is like beads falling off a necklace. One by one, one by one, one by one. That was what it was like for me, overnight. One thing happened towards Islam, I did it, the next thing happened, and the next thing happened, and the next thing happened, and I'm still at it today. That's how it was like for me. So I took my children to an Islamic school, which was a Sunday school, like you have Sunday school in the synagogue, and you have a Sunday school in the churches, because there was nowhere for my children to go. And I went there, and all of a sudden, the teacher comes up, well, it wasn't the teacher, it was the head teacher who was like a manager. She comes up to me and said, "Did you say you're a teacher?" I said, "Yeah." "And you're Muslim?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Right, we need you. Get over here right now. This is your class. We need you to teach Islam." And I didn't even know anything myself. How can I teach Islam if I don't even know myself? So I started researching, and do you know that God helped me each and every inch of the way. One thing really that sticks out for me was, I wanted to do an Adam and Eve play, and I didn't know what to do, and all of a sudden one of my friends phoned me who hadn't been in touch with me for years and years, and she phoned me and she goes, "Oh, guess what, I went to an Adam and Eve play last night in the mosque." Now that is not a coincidence for me, because that woman, I had not seen her for over 20 years, and she rang me out of the blue. She'd got the number of my mum, and she was talking to me about this Adam and Eve play, which I had scheduled for the following week, and I wasn't sure what to do. And then I decided I would do how Eid is celebrated around the world in that school, and I thought, how am I going to find out about this? Do you know what? I looked in the study, and there was a folder there saying how Eid is celebrated around the world. And I still don't know where that folder came from. It was that big for me. Do you know what? It was that big for me. So, all my talents I put in that school, all the teacher talents that I had accumulated over all those years, all went into Islam. So I'm going to very quickly go through some of these. So we did plays on the stage. I wrote a play on Noah's Ark, okay? And we did that in the Islamic school, which was for the first time in history, really, because you'd get all these plays in English schools, really, on the stages. My arts and crafts, I used to do Islamic things, made a mosque, got all the children involved. And, you know, some of those children are adults now. One of them I met in my husband's surgery the other day, and he was a man with a beard. And my husband goes, "Come on in, one of your pupils is in here." And I went in and I thought, I don't even know who that is. It was a big man. He goes, "Hello, Mrs. Naeem." "Oh, do you remember me? I used to be in your class." It was just hilarious, honestly. So one by one did everything. I started raising money for charity there. We did a big sponsored surah, which is chapters of the Quran. When you learn them off by heart, you get money, that kind of stuff. Took them on trips to the local mosque. And then 2 more things happened there. While I was at that school, there was a woman came and she goes that there is an interfaith forum in Essex and we need a Muslim lady. We need a Muslim person, can you come please? So I thought, okay then, I'll go along. And as soon as I went, there were some lovely ladies. Do you know, you remind me of those ladies? They came up to me and they go, "We've never met a Muslim before." Oh my God, they'd never met a Muslim before, and to me it was like God had put me there for a reason. So I started talking to them, and they had hundreds of questions. And the next minute, the Reverend said to me, we want you to do a talk on Islam. And I remember doing that talk, and I remember I did it, and I sat down and I was sweating, dripping with sweat after I did that very first talk. And it was a full-blown one in a university. So I was dumped straight in there, straight in there. So slowly, lots of important people I started meeting, and I started doing lots of interfaith activities. Lots of people think I only started meeting mayors and mayoresses recently, but I actually started meeting them right back then, and it was all to make my faith stronger. I started doing lots and lots of singing, and incorporated all the teacher talents into the religion. So there is a song we sung, and we've got the mayor and mayoress there. And then we've got another one there at the local Quaker house. We sang a Islamic song, Pizza in His Pocket. This is actually the mayoress of Chelmsford. And as you can see, my family were always with me from an early age. I got my children involved. So each talk and stuff I had, my family are here today, my family go everywhere with me. Because I need their support, and they're also enjoying everything that I'm doing. That's the only way to do it, really. And then another very important person came to that Islamic school. He was the chair of Sidra in Essex. And he goes, we need a Muslim teacher. Islam is not on the curriculum. Can you come along to one of our meetings, please? I went to the meeting, and I was angry because Islam wasn't even on the curriculum in Essex. So I wrote the curriculum. I put all my talents in there, and I wrote the curriculum. I was teaching RE anyway in the school, I was RE coordinator. And then as soon as that curriculum was written, what started happening? School visits. Everywhere people were calling me for school visits. I got hold of this imam who I thought would be good, and I took him with me to the school visit. And the very first school visit, I took him along with me. I did the talk, and he did the questions and answers because I wasn't very confident. And you know what? He let me down. He told all the children they were going to go to hell because they're not Muslim. And you know what? Oh, I felt sick. Here I was trying to create a good image of Islam, and he, within seconds, dissolved everything. So school visits started. I started taking them to the mosque as well. And I thought, you know what? I'm not having that imam with me. I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to ditch him, and I went solo. Okay? So I got rid of the imam, and I went solo. And when I say I went solo, I mean I trained up myself. So I went from strength to strength, and this is some of the things that I did. Now can you see my picture has changed? First I had my hair out, and now I've become like a nun. Because things are changing. And like I said, it was like pearls on a string, one by one, one by one. So I became an alima. I learnt the Quran, the Tajweed, Arabic, you name it. And then I studied comparative religion, which I was really into interfaith. Interfaith forums, Sacre, and I became advisor for police, fire services, Essex Mind and Spirit. It was one thing after the other. Everywhere I went, I gave a talk. People would say, can you do this, can you do this, can you do this? And I started doing it all. Muslim chaplain at Chelmsford College. I was the author of 2 books. Women Together, a group which I opened up. And these bits actually came a little bit later, but I've put them up anyway because there's something else dramatic that happened before 2017. But this is current stuff, international level, Islam channel, radio shows, invited to speak at summit conferences, and at the moment I'm doing a PhD in Islamic studies as well. I started going into churches. I started then with the comparative religion. I started then talking in churches and comparing religions. And here is one talk on Ramadan in a church. We did an iftar in Ramadan. Here's another one in East London, a talk on Islamophobia. So I'm getting stronger. Can you see? I'm now dealing with very strong topics. And here's another church where I'm showing a prayer mat. And here's another church. And then I took children in the cathedral to sing as well. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And do you know, at that stage in my life, I thought that is the end now. There's nothing else more I can do for Islam. Now I want to go and I want to do pilgrimage. At the end of my life, that's it, I want to go and do pilgrimage. And do you know what? That was then the second big bang in my life. I went to do pilgrimage and I went up on the mountain of Mercy. And I could hear voices in my ears telling me I'm not doing enough. So the voices, basically it wasn't voices, they were thoughts coming in my head, and God was putting them in my head. And God said, I sent you to the Interfaith Forum in Essex and you're complaining. I sent you to all of those schools and you're complaining, you haven't got time. Because I used to complain. I used to tell people, pray for me, I'm too busy. Pray for me, I don't want to be so busy. I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this, which were not Islamic things. So God was angry with me. And one by one, those thoughts came in my head. That I sent you here. I sent you to write that curriculum. I chose you to do it. I made you a teacher for that reason. And you're complaining? So I came back shaken and scared. And even now, can you hear my voice is shaking? Because every time I hear that, I get really upset, really upset. So, I'm going to be stronger now. So then I started, doing lots more. And I never complained. Whatever came my way, I thought, that's from God, that's from God. That's from God, I have to do it. And then, I was hoping I wouldn't get to this stage, but anyway, then it got bigger and bigger. So, Women Together then got bigger, and I started meeting lots of famous people. So that's my first famous person that I met. That's Frank Bruno there. And I started talking in huge conferences. That conference was huge. There was thousands of people there. And I've got the mayor and mayoress in the cathedral. And then Romford Mosque, you'll be interested in this, Umar. Romford Mosque came later, much later in my life. And that is a day, actually, I'll never forget, because there was a spoof imam in Brentwood, the same one I took along, by the way, to the schools with me, the one who I'd ditched. And he started collecting money from mosque in Brentwood, and it crumbled. He took the money and ran, basically. And you know, the day I found out he was a spoof from the police, that same day, Captain Perez rang me from Romford Mosque and said, we need you, can you come and teach in the madrasa? So that's when my story then starts in Havering. It's getting bigger, I'm spreading. So Havering then started. There's the mayoress in Havering. I always gave the talks whenever there was an Eid party, and yes, we have had some really important people. We've got the Queen's representative there, we've got Rosendale there. Big crowds again, lots of fun we've had. I think that was the one before last. I think that's, what's her name? Philippa. Philippa, she's Jewish, isn't she? And I think he is Hindu, I think. I'm not sure, he might be Sikh. Started getting in the papers. School visits then started in this mosque as well. I was doing all of this in Chelmsford Mosque. And then it started here in Romford Mosque as well. And Eid parties, look, we've got the same group there. Everywhere I went, I'd take the children from that school. So then here we sung that pizza song again, all dressed up, all multicultural stuff. And then the Interfaith Forum start. Now somebody phoned me up about that. They said they don't like the speakers for Islam. And Sidra, you need to go along to the Interfaith Forum and sort them out, someone said to me. We don't like the speaker who comes. They just blabber on and they don't know what they're saying. So I actually, I think I emailed Kim, and then Kim got in touch with you and you said, come along, we need you. Yes. And I ended up doing it here as well. And then back in the papers, I started doing more interfaith cricket matches, which we're trying to arrange one here. We did 3. Here's the 3rd one that got in the papers. Started doing radio shows. I started going global. BBC Essex, started off BBC Essex, but then each and every radio programme I do goes viral across the whole of England, all the BBCs. And then Gateway, which is a monthly 1-hour-long session on Islam, which I'm very, very lucky to have. I did include other fun things like multicultural stuff. So there's me as a flamenco dancer. You might think she's so boring, all Islam, Islam. Well, I did other things. I actually did bhangra dancing in one of the schools with the kids. You could do it with the children. I taught them how to do bhangra, and it was just so amazing. So there you go. That's me as a flamenco dancer with the vicar. He came there to have a look at my dressing up store, you know, just to sort of tell people about different cultures. There's me with some Chinese dancers, dragon dance, and there's a big, I think it's one of those carnival type figures there. And that's how quiz night started 3 years ago, and we did our the 3rd one I did was here just a couple of weeks ago. And very, very privileged actually with Chelmsford Cathedral. They raised me up so high. They, each and every Commonwealth service or Essex County Council Civic Service, they always call me and they always tell me to do a reading, and I'm always the first one. That's how much privilege they give me. Each and everything that I do, I'm always rewarded for it. And that's what keeps me going, Everything I do is voluntary, but then I'm rewarded for it, and that is what keeps me going in my faith. Feeding the homeless is a new one. And then it was last year when I thought, gosh, when is this going to stop? But things got really big for me last year. I first of all got invited to the Houses of Parliament, okay, and I met loads of MPs and things there. Saw Theresa May from a distance, and I was also invited to a very, very big reception. It was a racecourse reception, and everybody there were all mayors and mayoresses from the whole country, all the Queen's representatives. That's Lord Peter. When that happened, I knew something big was going to happen after that. I just knew in my heart. And I was telling my family, but I'm not sure if my mum took it in. I really don't. I used to put everything on the group and people used to say, oh, you're just showing off. But I knew only I was seeing everything happening. It was happening to me. And you know what? Yes, something big, very big happened. So this year I went to Buckingham Palace and I met the Queen, which was the biggest privilege, really. Not only did I meet her, I also met Charles and I met Camilla. And I met Boris Johnson and I met Theresa May. How big can it get? And when I came back, I thought again, there can't be anything else now. That's the end point, don't you think? Have I stopped, Nasreen? Goodness, I'm being called to Muslim Council of Britain. Are after me like anything. Come and talk with us. Big, huge conferences. When I went to Ahmed Bukhatir's concert, there was more people queuing up for my autograph than there were for his. I was there standing for his autograph, and there was a queue behind me for mine. It was absolutely hilarious. And when I tell my family I'm really famous, they don't get it. They only see me as their daughter, their sister, or their mother. They don't see it. Do you know that? They do not see it. I don't think they see it. No. That is, who's that? Corbyn. There you go. Saw him only on Friday. I saw him only on Friday. That's a selfie. And the Commonwealth Party that I got invited to. I had another phone call from Buckingham Palace, everyone, a couple of days ago. And the reason was they weren't going to call me to the Commonwealth Party, so I went along, and I was the only one chosen out of all of our group to do a talk. I felt so privileged. I also met, actually the previous picture had the King of Nigeria there on the corner there. And I also met oh, you're only allowed to say Royal Highness, because I asked them their names and they said, well, Royal Highness you have to call us. So Royal Highness, Princess Meridian and Princess Toyin from Nigeria. And I have also met Royal Highness Princess Muzwari Makoni from Zimbabwe. So I met that royal family from around the whole world. And a lot of people think she's so busy her house must be a tip. But you come to my house, it's crystal clean and it's well decorated, just like my PowerPoints, and everything gets done. If you're out there in the way of God, everything gets done. God finds the time for everything. Believe me. People say, I haven't got time to go here, I haven't got time to go here. When it's for God, God finds the time. Sometimes I go home, there's no dinner on the table, someone will knock on the door and they'll say, here's some dinner for you, Sidra. I am not joking about that. Little things like that happen to me all the time, and you know God wants you to do it. God is the one who's guiding you and He wants you to do it. Sometimes I'm at work, and this is not a joke, this one spooks me out like anything. I'm at work, I get an email, Sidra, can you please come and speak on this conference? And it's on a day of my job. I'm about to email and say, sorry, I can't do it. My manager comes and says, Sidra, in this week, can you swap this Wednesday for this day? Do you know, that spooks me out like anything. And then instead of emailing and say, sorry, I can't do it, the email says, yes, I'm coming. I will do it, I'm coming. Do you see? So I feel, anyway, that God chooses who he does as well. And He puts those talents in you so that you can do the work for Islam, for your religion. Those talents are all in you. So I'm sorry I went on a bit, but as you can see, I'm super enthusiastic. So I'd like to take questions actually now, and I would like to I would like you to ask me questions, because I think it would be interesting for everybody. I think you had a question earlier on, didn't you?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. When you're out in the public domain, presumably you're under a microscope. How do you cope with intrusion? How does your family cope with that?
I don't think my family see it, to be quite honest with you. Because, like I've said, I feel my family are in a bubble, but it's because they don't know me as this famous figure. They see me as their mother, their sister and their daughter. My husband sees it, funny enough. You know why? Because it's always him who opens the post, and there's like this, the invitation to the Queen, he had it. He opened it, and then any thank you letters that come, he opens it, you know. But it's really interesting when my mum's friends tell her, it's all of a sudden boom in her face. Honestly, one of my friends, she saw me giving a lecture and then told her friend, who was my mum's friend, and that friend went and told my mum that there's this girl in Essex who teaches Islam really well. You don't think that's your daughter, do you? and my mum, you know, like my mum, she just thinks, yeah, she's doing everything, you know. And then she asked me, she goes, did you give a talk in Basildon last week? And I said, yeah, Mum, that was me. That was me. So it hits them, but I don't know. It's different with family, but I find that with lots of faiths. They see you as their mother, daughter or wife. They don't see you as this public figure, but my friends do, and that's the difference. My friends, oh my God, I put a YouTube video on a group and it's like 100 messages underneath. Oh wow, I like this bit, and oh I like this bit that you said, and well done, and carry on. Oh, and when's your next lecture, and when's the next photo? Where's the photo to the Queen? I want to see this and I want to see that. So it's different, but you just learn to live with it, really. You learn to live with it. Yes?
When you took up Islam,
yes.
how did your husband feel? Because it's unusual.
Yeah. I think that my rest of the other family was different more. My husband was very good. First of all, he was more Islamic than me when we got married.
Okay.
Yeah. But then what's strange is after we got married, I became more religious. And sometimes when I used to say, do you know what, this happened to me today, and that's not a coincidence, he'd say, yes, it is. Yeah? But when we went to do Hajj, he woke up then. And there were like miracles we saw when we went to do pilgrimage, and all of a sudden it was, oh my God, you're right. So then he came back and then he changed. But bringing him along with me to everything really helped for him then to get an interest in it as well.
Your family is a great support to you.
Yes, of course. Yeah. My family support me really well, but you know why? Because they see all the rewards. It's in front of their eyes in the house. I'd also like to say that my whole family then, they were already Muslim, but they all slowly started coming towards Islam, slowly. At first, I'll never forget, my dad said, leave your religion at home. Because I used to go home and go to the house and I used to start telling them things. And my dad goes, I don't want to know. Leave your religion at home. But it's the same dad, later on, do you know, he had a back operation and he asked me, he said, you know the Quran translation, can I have a read, please? So I gave it to him, and then while he was resting for 8 weeks, he read the Quran and he read the Hadiths, the 9 volumes, one by one. I was giving them to him every week, and slowly he changed. So families can change, but you have to try. I used to do lectures in my house at first, and they used to be rolling eyes. Oh, here she goes again. Lectures in your house, especially my brother. You know, what are you doing that for now? We don't want to know, you know. You can do your preaching elsewhere. I carried on. And then I stopped them, started doing them publicly, and I called my mum and dad there. Now they see it all. They see other people's reactions as well. So it's helped them a lot.
Can I just point out, we've always been Muslim. It's not like we've converted to Islam all of a sudden. We've always been Muslim. What Sidra means is that slowly we've got deeper into
Yes, understanding it better.
But we've always been Muslims. We've never been non-Muslim.
Yeah, that I did say at the beginning when I said I was born into a Muslim family.
I've got 2 thoughts. The first is, you talked about your 2 big moments.
Yes.
And there's a thing in the Quran that says, do you think it'd be enough for you to say I believe or you will not be put to proof? And it seems that those 2 moments were you being put to proof. You see what I mean?
I think there were wake-up calls.
Yes, that's what I meant. You said, you know, you suddenly, well, am I... And the other thing was, you talked about how some mullahs, some Muslims muck things up.
Say that again, sorry, because
You
it's a
said
bit of
about
talking.
you said about how a mullah mucked things up for your talk.
An imam.
An imam.
Oh yes,
Because
yes.
I was at an interfaith in New Zealand, and we were talking at the end. There was a Buddhist, a Christian, a Muslim, and myself.
Yes.
And I said, well, if everyone followed exactly what they said in their religion, there wouldn't be any problems. He said, well, no, if I was a good Muslim, I would kill you. And I said, God loveth not the aggressor, which is a quote from the Quran. And he was furious that I should know the Quran. But I mean, it was. You know, I had a quote from the Quran that said you would do nothing of the kind.
Yes. I just find that
It's sad.
to be able to mix with different faiths and to be able to explain your faith, you need to be of moderate thinking, and you should have at some stage mixed with them in the first place. It's not all black and white, hard and fast rules. There's a different way when you preach Islam to Muslims and a different way when you talk about Islam to non-Muslims. Completely different way altogether. Okay, do we have any more questions? Because now's your chance. You're not going to get me doing this again because it's difficult enough. Yes.
How did you manage the children who must have gone through a difficult time with all these things happening in the world?
They didn't. You know why? Because I took them everywhere with me.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
How did you manage that?
Yeah. I used to take them everywhere with me.
Yeah.
Every single talk that was at the weekends mainly, they would come with me. If anything happened, it would be during the school day while they were at school.
Right.
And did you know, even while I was working, this is why I became a teacher, to incorporate them so that I could be there at the end of the day to collect them and in the morning drop them. I don't think I neglected them in any way.
I just meant about explaining. You know, children have got a lot of questions. It says why this is happening. about
They
explaining to
didn't
them.
ask, they grew up with it, because my daughter was 5 years old, I would say, when the Islam started. So I don't think they had that stage in their life where it suddenly happened. They grew up with it. They've always seen their mum like this, which is why it doesn't affect them in any way. Do you see? It's no big deal. Here, it's mum giving, another one, Whereas everyone else, they get excited, so it's different. Isn't
I
it?
don't know how you do it all.
With the will of Allah, obviously.
Do you think that your faith has made you a stronger person? Because Islam has so much negativity attached to it, and people throw all these awkward questions.
Definitely. I mean, at first I used to get angry when people used to come out with all sorts. A child in a school asked me, "Do you have a television at home?" Do you know, I used to get so angry. I go, "What are you going on about? I've got a 70-inch television, it's probably bigger than yours. And what do you eat?" And like I was some kind of animal. There was that much stigma out there, really, in the schools. So,
Because people put their brain, Muslim does that, Sikh does this, Sikh kills people, Muslim kills people. People put their brain, that's happening.
Yeah.
Like for your warrior, you kill people, It's happening.
So, everything happens for a reason, but it's also up to us to put things right. And I felt this urge that I've got to tell people. Once I had the knowledge, I wanted to go out and tell people. And obviously, God made me a teacher for a reason. I started off as a scientist, like I said, like my dad. And what's really interesting is the teaching role that I've got amalgamated the science and the teaching. Special needs is full of science. All of it. It was quite amazing, I feel, my journey. And each bit, I reckon, was planned by God for a reason, even though at the time I never knew what was going on. But now when I look back at my life, oh my God, it was planned. And, and I fear the future because I don't know. It's really strange, but after the Queen I thought it would stop, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I mean, my videos now are on YouTube and they're going around the whole world, and I get fan mail coming in from Chechnya and Jamaica, and I'm going big in America at the moment. And I don't know why, I just think, what's going to happen now, next? I'm scared in a way. I don't know what's to come.
But you're still evolving.
I'm still evolving, but I don't know what God has planned for me, the end state.
Like maybe kiwi.
Nobody knows that.
You're not meant to
You're
know.
it forever.
Yeah, I've got very fast pace of life as well. Honestly, that people must have noticed. I finish one event and the next one comes, and then the next one comes, and then the next one comes.
Do you need a secretary?
I do everything myself.
You probably will need to have secretaries.
Yeah.
Great accomplishment.
Okay, any more questions?
Thank you, that was really
It's
good.
been fascinating.
Okay. Well done.
Are you allowed to have some flowers?
Oh, thank you very much.
New Zealand special.
New Zealand. Oh, lovely, thank you.
Thank you.